The story begins with a lie, a carefully constructed deception designed to shatter a marriage. A husband, feigning catastrophic debt, convinces his wife to sign divorce papers to protect her from the fallout. But the moment the ink is dry, he rushes to marry his mistress. He doesn't know that as his new life begins, his ex-wife's is about to be reborn. A lawyer appears with stunning news, a secret inheritance of $150 million. Overnight, the tables have turned, and a quiet revenge begins to simmer. I gently place the pot of slow-braised short ribs on the stove, letting the low flame coax the rich, savory flavors into the meat, the sharp aroma of rosemary filling our small Brooklyn condo. The creamy tomato soup bubbled softly beside it. Ethan had called earlier, saying he had a late dinner with an important client and would be home after. I knew he'd been stressed about his tech startup, so I wanted a perfect, comforting meal waiting for him, a small taste of warmth and stability to soothe his worries. In our 5 years of marriage, I had grown accustomed to this role. The steady anchor to his ambitious ship, the quiet force managing our home so he could conquer the world. From the silverware in the drawers to the linen curtains on the windows, every detail in this home was a product of my care. My mother-in-law, Sharon, wasn't one for effusive compliments, but whenever guests visited, she would always remark, "Amelia keeps such a beautiful home, doesn't she?" I believed our life would continue on this peaceful, steady path. A united team, ready to face any challenge. I never craved luxury or fame. All I wanted was a stable home, a place where our family could gather around a warm dinner table each night. That was my definition of contentment. The clock struck 7 p.m. I had just finished setting the table, waiting only for the familiar sound of Ethan's car in the driveway. Instead, the doorbell rang, sharp and urgent. Strange. Who would be visiting at this hour? Wiping my hands on my apron, I went to the door. Standing there was Ethan, but not the cheerful, confident man I knew. His face was pale, his eyes avoiding mine. Beside him stood a stranger, a burly man in his 40s dressed in an ill-fitting black suit, whose cold, appraising stare sent a shiver down my spine. "You're home," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dinner's ready." My heart was already pounding with a nameless dread. Ethan didn't answer. He brushed past me and walked into the living room, the other man following silently. Ethan collapsed onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands with a ragged sigh. I closed the door, my mind racing, and followed him in. "Ethan, what's wrong? Who is this?" I asked timidly. He lifted his head, his eyes red-rimmed as if he'd been crying. He gestured weakly at the imposing man. "Amelia, this is Rick. I'm sorry. My business. It's failed. I owe him a lot of money." My breath caught in my throat. I sat beside him, taking his trembling arm. "How much? Tell me. We can figure this out together." The man named Rick spoke, his voice a low growl. $500,000, principal and interest. The papers are all signed. Today's the deadline. If he can't pay, things get unpleasant. $500,000. The number slammed into me like a physical blow. It was an amount we could never hope to earn in a lifetime of work. The floor felt like it was falling away beneath me. How? How could it be so much? I thought the startup was doing well. Ethan shook his head, his voice choked with despair. "I kept it from you. I took a huge risk on a new product line, thinking it would be our big break. It was a total loss. Now they're coming for the debt, and they won't just come for me. They'll come after you, after our family. I can't drag you down with me." Panic seized me. "So what do? We can sell the condo. We can borrow from family and friends." "It's too late for that." Ethan cut me off abruptly. He looked me straight in the eye, his gaze alien and cold. "There's only one way to protect you." He paused, then uttered the words I never thought I would hear. "We need to get a divorce." The word divorce left his lips so easily, yet it landed on my chest like a block of concrete, crushing the air from my lungs. The world went silent, except for the frantic drumming of my own heart. What are you saying?" I stammered. "It's the only way the debt won't be tied to you. I'll take full responsibility. The condo, our savings, I'm leaving it all to you. Consider it my way of making amends." "Amelia, please," he begged. "Just sign the papers." It's the only way you'll be safe." His words were painted with sacrifice and nobility, but deep inside, a chilling sense of falsehood prickled my skin. A loving husband, even in the face of ruin, would fight alongside his wife, not push her away like a burden to be cast off. Across the room, Rick tapped his thick fingers on the coffee table. "So, what's it gonna be, Ethan? My time is valuable." Ethan turned to me, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "Amelia, I'm begging you, for the last time, please, sign." He pulled a thick envelope from his briefcase. Inside was a set of professionally prepared divorce papers. Every clause was already detailed. All marital assets, including the condo, would go to me. All debts would be his sole responsibility. It was all terrifyingly thorough, as if he had been planning this for a very long time. My mind was blank. I stared at the man I had loved and cared for, the man who was now forcing a pen into my hand to protect me. Tears welled in my eyes, but I swallowed them back. I glanced at the dinner on the table, now cold and forgotten. My heart felt like it was being torn in two. "Fine," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I'll sign." My hand trembled as I took the pen. Each stroke of my name on the document felt like a knife carving into my soul. Amelia Hayes, the name I had used to bind my life to his, now used to sever it completely. After signing, I dropped the pen, feeling utterly drained. The instant I put it down, I saw a strange flicker of light in Ethan's eyes. The tormented anguish he had displayed just moments ago vanished. He snatched the papers from my hand, scanning my signature as if to ensure it was real, then carefully placed them back in his briefcase. A wave of unmistakable relief washed over his face, a look he tried and failed to mask with a somber expression. "Amelia, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice rushed, devoid of any real sentiment. "You'll have to take care of yourself now." Rick stood up, the menacing aura gone, replaced by a knowing smirk. "All right, business is done. Let's go. Don't want to disturb the ladies' evening." They turned and walked out, never looking back. Ethan didn't give me a single parting glance. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone in the silent condo with a cold dinner and a shattered life. The rich scent of the short ribs now seemed bitter and mocking. It had all happened too fast, too suddenly. Hours ago, I was a happy wife waiting for her husband. Now, I was a divorced woman, abandoned for the sake of a debt. But as the shock subsided, a sliver of doubt crept in. My intuition told me this wasn't just about a business failure. I stumbled to the window and pulled back the curtain. The scene on the street below made my blood run cold. Rick wasn't leaving. He was standing by a sleek black SUV parked at the curb. Ethan walked briskly out of the building, and from the passenger side of the SUV, a beautiful young woman emerged. She wore a tight red dress, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She ran to Ethan and threw her arms around him, a radiant smile on her face. Ethan pulled the divorce papers from his briefcase and held them up like a trophy. The woman looked at the papers, let out a squeal of delight, and planted a loud kiss on his cheek. They embraced, laughing and talking, their faces glowing with a happiness that was a world away from the tragic play Ethan had just performed for me. Then, they got into the SUV and sped away, disappearing into the city traffic. I stood frozen at the window, my knuckles white from gripping the sill. It wasn't the pain of betrayal that struck me, but the blinding rage of being played for a fool. So that was it. It was all a meticulously staged play. There was no catastrophic debt, no noble sacrifice, only lies and infidelity. He wanted to leave me for her, but he was afraid of a contentious divorce, of having to divide our assets. So he invented this elaborate scheme to force me out with nothing, making me feel grateful to him for saving me. The bitterness didn't bring tears. It hardened into a cold, solid mass in my chest. I wasn't sad. I was furious. I thought of the 5 years of my life I had dedicated to him, to his family, only to be rewarded with this cruel deception. The dinner I had so lovingly prepared now seemed like a pathetic joke. I turned and looked around the condo, our home. It all felt alien now. My love, my trust, had been trampled. "All right, Ethan," I thought, a cold resolve settling over me. "You wanted to play this game. Now, we play by my rules. You wanted me to disappear cleanly from your life? I'll show you. My disappearance will be the greatest nightmare you've ever known. I walked to the kitchen, picked up the pot of soup, and poured it down the drain. The cold water washed it all away, just as it washed away the weak, forgiving Amelia of yesterday. From this moment on, a new Amelia was born, one who would take back everything she was owed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the darkness, staring out the window, my mind alight with plans for revenge. The initial pain had cooled, replaced by a steely determination. I would not let that deceitful pair live happily ever after on the foundation of my sacrifice. The next morning, while I was still exhausted from a sleepless night, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Sharon. I took a deep breath, composed my voice to sound weary and heartbroken, and answered. "Hello, Sharon," I murmured. "Amelia, honey, Ethan told me what happened," she began, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Oh, you poor thing. To be married to such an irresponsible man, getting himself into so much trouble he had to leave you like this." I knew she was secretly thrilled. She had always thought Ethan could do better than me. "I'll be okay, Sharon," I managed to say, feigning weakness. "Of course, dear. The divorce is for the best. You don't want to be saddled with his debts. And you're still young. You can start over. You just stay put in the condo, don't you go anywhere. It's only right that Ethan left it to you. I'll talk to him, make sure he doesn't bother you again." Her words were a poorly veiled attempt to confirm that the condo was securely mine and to ensure I wouldn't cause any trouble for her precious son. Next, my sister-in-law, Haley, called. She didn't even bother to hide her glee. "Amelia, I'm so sorry to hear the news, but don't you worry. At least Ethan was smart enough not to drag you down with him. You just take care of yourself, and if you need anything, you know you can always call me." "Help?" I scoffed internally. This was the girl who only ever called to ask for money. She was probably celebrating getting rid of the sister-in-law she always saw as a nuisance. After those 2 calls, I felt a wave of disgust for their entire family, a pack of wolves in sheep's clothing. I was about to turn my phone off when an unknown number from a Manhattan area code called. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Good morning. Am I speaking with Miss Amelia Hayes?" A calm, professional male voice asked. "Yes, this is she. Who's calling?" "Miss Hayes. My name is Arthur Vance. I'm an attorney with the firm Vance and Sterling. I am calling you regarding the last will and testament of a deceased client." An attorney? A will? The words made no sense. I didn't have any wealthy relatives who would need a private lawyer. "I think you have the wrong number. I don't know anyone. I assure you, Miss Hayes, there is no mistake. I am calling to inform you that your great-aunt, Miss Eleanor Vance, who resided in Paris for many years, passed away last month. According to her legally executed will, you, Miss Amelia Hayes, are the sole and legal heir to her entire estate." Eleanor Vance. The name was faintly familiar. I vaguely remembered my parents mentioning a great-aunt who moved to France when she was young and lost contact with the family. I had assumed she had passed away long ago or had a new family of her own. Her estate. "How much is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mr. Vance paused for a moment before delivering a figure that nearly made me drop the phone. "Ma'am, after the preliminary conversion and liquidation of assets, the total estimated value of the estate, including real estate, stock portfolios, and bank deposits, is approximately $150 million US. $150 million. I sank into a chair, my head spinning. The number was so vast it felt unreal. Me, Amelia Hayes, the woman who had just been tricked out of her marriage over a fake $500,000 debt, was now the heiress to a fortune 300 times that amount. The irony was staggering. "Miss Hayes? Are you still there?" Mr. Vance's voice pulled me back to reality. "Yes, I'm here. I just can't believe it," I stammered. "I understand your shock. As per her instructions, an initial transfer of $25 million will be deposited into a new account in your name by tomorrow morning to allow you to manage your immediate affairs. The transfer of the remaining assets will proceed in the following weeks. Furthermore, Miss Vance included a special stipulation in her will. All information regarding this inheritance must be kept in the strictest confidence. It is not to be disclosed to anyone without your express consent. Strictest confidence. Those words were like a jolt of electricity. Yes, it had to be a secret, especially from Ethan and his family. If they found out, they would descend on me like vultures. A cold smile touched my lips. Ethan had abandoned me over a phantom $500,000. Scarlett had destroyed my marriage for the promise of a lavish lifestyle. His family was rejoicing at being rid of a burden. And now, I held $150 million in my hands. The game was just beginning. "Mr. Vance," I said, my voice now perfectly calm, "I understand. Thank you for the information, and please remember my great-aunt's request for confidentiality. That is now my request as well. Absolutely no one is to know about this. Especially not my ex-husband, Ethan Miller, or his family. Of course, Miss Hayes, that is our professional obligation." After hanging up, I stared into space as tears finally fell. But they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of release, of a new door swinging wide open. Life had just slammed one shut, but in its place, it had opened a path 1,000 times grander. "Ethan Miller, you are going to regret this, I swear it." The day after that fateful call, I spent my time recalibrating. The immense fortune still felt like a dream, but it gave me the confidence and the foundation to begin my plan. First and foremost, I had to continue playing the part of a pitiful, unemployed, recently divorced woman with no prospects. The more pathetic I appeared, the more their guard would be down. As Mr. Vance promised, the next morning I received an encrypted text message confirming a massive deposit into a newly opened private bank account. I didn't dare check it on a regular banking app, but I knew the promise was real. I was no longer a penniless victim. As I was plotting my next move, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Sharon and Haley. Sharon was holding a bag of slightly wilted-looking organic apples, and Haley was peering around with undisguised curiosity. I knew this wasn't a social call. I opened the door, forcing a tired, disheveled look onto my face. "Sharon, Haley, what a surprise." Sharon bustled in, placing the apples on the counter with a look of fake pity. "We just came to see how you were holding up, dear. You look exhausted. But it's for the best. Better to be free from that good-for-nothing son of mine." Haley wandered around the living room, her eyes scanning everything like an appraiser. "The place still looks great, Amelia. Aren't you lonely here all by yourself? Maybe you should come stay with Mom and Dad for a while." I saw right through their act. They were afraid I'd sell the condo or worse, move another man in. They wanted to keep me and the property under their control. I shook my head, my voice weak. "Thank you, but I think I just need some time alone. I'm used to this place." Sharon sat on the sofa, patting my hand as she got to the real point. "Amelia, honey, don't be offended by what I'm about to say. That $500,000 debt, even though Ethan took responsibility, you never know with those loan shark types. What if they come here looking for money? You're a woman all alone. What would you do?" "I have an idea. Why don't you sign the condo over to me, just temporarily, for your protection? As an older woman, I can deal with them better. Once everything blows over, I'll sign it right back to you." "What do you think?" I almost laughed out loud. The old fox. She wanted to trick me into legally signing away my only asset. If I agreed, I knew I would never see that deed again. I feigned fear, pulling my hand back. "Oh no, Sharon, that's too scary. I can't deal with any legal papers right now. Ethan said he left the condo to me. I'm sure they won't come looking for me." Seeing I wasn't falling for it, Sharon's face tightened slightly, but she maintained her sweet tone. "Well, I'm just worried about you. You think it over. I'll always see you as a daughter. By the way, now that you're not working, how are you managing for money? Do you need any help?" "Yeah, Amelia," Haley added. "Don't be shy. We're family." Another trap. They were trying to find out if I had any personal savings left to squeeze. "Thank you both. I have a little something saved up. It should last me a while until I find a new job," I replied, making sure I sounded like I was in a precarious situation. Hearing that there was nothing left to gain, they soon made their excuses and left. As she was walking out, Sharon added, "You think about what I said, dear. It's all for your own good." I watched them go, slamming the door shut the moment they turned their backs. Their hypocrisy was nauseating. For my own good? They only cared about themselves. The moment they were gone, I called Arthur Vance. "Mr. Vance, it's Amelia Hayes." "Miss Hayes, do you have new instructions for me?" "Yes. I need your help with something. I need you to investigate my ex-husband, Ethan Miller, and his new partner, a woman named Scarlett. I want to know everything they're planning, especially regarding any major purchases, real estate, cars, or business investments." "Consider it done, Miss Hayes. I will have a team on it immediately." "And one more thing," I said, my voice turning to ice. "I want you to help me purchase a property. I want the most beautiful, most expensive penthouse at the Apex Residences. All paperwork must be handled through a trust that you will establish for me. Call it the A.V. Legacy Trust. My name is not to appear anywhere." Mr. Vance was momentarily surprised, but quickly regained his composure. "I understand, Miss Hayes. Everything will be handled precisely as you've requested. The Apex Residences, the most luxurious new development in the entire city, a symbol of ultimate success. I remember Ethan pointing to a billboard for it once, saying, 'When I make it big, I'll buy you a place there.' Now, he was dreaming of it with another woman." "Fine, Ethan. Let's see how you feel when the very dream you're chasing is snatched away by the wife you threw away. My revenge would begin with the destruction of his most extravagant fantasy." A few days later, I received a text from Mr. Vance. "Afternoon tea at the Gilded Leaf Cafe, 3 p.m. Come alone." It was a discreet cafe in a quiet West Village side street, a place far too understated for a high-powered lawyer or a multi-millionaire heiress. I appreciated his caution. It only solidified my trust in him. Dressed in a simple, nondescript outfit, I took a taxi to our meeting. Mr. Vance was waiting in a secluded booth, a slim file on the table before him. He stood and nodded politely as I approached. "Miss Hayes, please, have a seat." "What have you found?" I asked, my heart beating a little faster. He pushed the file towards me. "This is the preliminary report. Our sources indicate that Ethan Miller is trying to secure a final round of funding for his smart home startup. He has poured all his capital into it and taken on significant personal loans. As for Scarlett, since their marriage, she has been pressuring him to buy a home. They have viewed several properties, but their ultimate goal is the duplex penthouse in the main tower of the Apex Residences." The first page of the file contained a candid photo of Ethan and Scarlett, hand in hand in the lobby of the Apex. Scarlett's face was alight with pure, unadulterated desire. My heart felt no pain, only a cold, detached contempt. Her dream was built on my suffering. "That penthouse is currently unlisted but available for private sale," Mr. Vance continued. "The asking price is $15 million. If you decide to proceed, we can act immediately. Here is the paperwork for the A.V. Legacy Trust. All future assets can be held under this trust to ensure your privacy." I flipped through the documents, then nodded decisively. "Do it, Mr. Vance. Buy it now. A single, all-cash payment. I want the deal closed as quickly as possible. And remember absolutely no trace of my involvement." I could see a flicker of surprise in his eyes at my decisiveness, but he simply made a note. "Understood, Miss Hayes. It will be handled with the utmost discretion and efficiency." Leaving the cafe, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The first move on the chessboard had been made. I was setting a beautiful, irresistible trap, and the prey was too busy celebrating its victory to notice. That evening, as I was sorting through old belongings, preparing to discard the past, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered, and a chirpy, self-satisfied voice came through the line. "Amelia? It's Scarlett." I remained silent. How dare she call me? Sensing my silence, she grew bolder, her tone shifting to a cloying, performative sweetness. "I'm just calling to share some wonderful news. Ethan and I are getting a new place soon. A penthouse at the Apex Residences. It's absolutely gorgeous, with a rooftop garden overlooking the whole city. Ethan said he wants to make up for lost time, to give me the best of everything. He even said that living with you was so restrictive, that now that he has me for motivation, he can finally be his true self." Every word was a needle meant to prick my pride. But strangely, I felt no pain, only a dark amusement. She was gloating about a dream that I had just purchased out from under her. I forced a sigh into the phone. "Is that so? Well, congratulations to you both." "Oh, don't be sad, Amelia," she purred, feigning comfort. "It's just fate, you know. Besides, Ethan mentioned you. He said that, after all, you were once married. If you ever fall on hard times, he won't just stand by and watch. He's such a good man, isn't he?" I let out a dry laugh. "Yes, a very good man. Well, I won't keep you. We're putting the deposit down this weekend. Once we move in, I'll have to invite you over so you can see it." She hung up without waiting for a reply, no doubt imagining my face contorted with jealousy and grief. She was wrong. She had no idea she was boasting about a fantasy. That penthouse would never be hers, and I would make sure that this was only the beginning of her disillusionment. A few days later, I forced myself to leave the condo. I wandered aimlessly through familiar streets, my mind a tangle of thoughts. By some strange twist of fate, my feet led me to the downtown area near the city clerk's office, the place where marriages and divorces are made official. And then I saw them. Ethan and Scarlett. He was in a sharp suit, and she wore a pristine white dress, looking every bit the blushing bride. They walked out of the building hand in hand, each holding a freshly issued marriage certificate. Their faces were aglow with happiness. Scarlett even held up her certificate, leaning her head on Ethan's shoulder for a selfie. Their joy felt like a personal insult. Just a week ago, in that very same building, Ethan and I had dissolved our marriage. I quickly turned away and found a bench in a small park across the street, pretending to be absorbed in my phone. I didn't want a confrontation, but fate had other plans. After their photo shoot, they walked towards the park, likely heading to a nearby parking garage. "Amelia, what are you doing here?" Ethan's voice was a mixture of surprise and awkwardness. I slowly looked up, managing a weak, forced smile. "Just getting some air. Congratulations to you both." Scarlett looked me up and down, her eyes flashing with triumph. She deliberately raised her marriage certificate. "Thank you, we just made it official. From now on, we're legally husband and wife." Ethan said this is his first gift to me. The second will be the penthouse at the Apex. We're actually on our way to meet with the developers right now. Ethan coughed lightly, a silent signal that she was saying too much, but his gaze was still filled with the smugness of a victor. "Are you doing okay, Amelia?" I just looked down at my shoes, unable to speak. Just then, a black luxury sedan pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and Arthur Vance, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stepped out, holding a dark blue leather portfolio. He scanned the area for a moment before walking directly towards me. "Miss Hayes," he said, his tone deeply respectful, completely ignoring Ethan and Scarlett, "my apologies for the delay. This is the final purchase and sale agreement for the P1 penthouse at the Apex Tower. The developer requires your final signature to complete the title transfer. Everything has been paid in full." He opened the portfolio and laid it on the bench in front of me. The bold letters, "Purchase Agreement," Duplex Penthouse P1, and the name of the buyer below it, the A.V. Legacy Trust, hit Ethan and Scarlett like a physical force. The air grew thick and still. The triumphant smile on Scarlett's face froze. Her eyes widened, darting from the contract to me, her expression a mask of disbelief. The marriage certificate in her hand suddenly seemed to weigh a ton. Ethan's jaw dropped. His face cycled through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and finally, suspicion. "A lawyer, the Apex. Amelia, what is this?" he stammered. I calmly took the pen Mr. Vance offered. I knew I didn't need to read the details. He had prepared everything perfectly. I signed my name under the line for the trustee of the A.V. Legacy Trust. My signature was firm and steady. "It's done," I said, handing the portfolio back to him. "Thank you, Mr. Vance. You've been a great help." "It is my duty, Miss Hayes," he replied with a nod. "The legal documents and the keys will be delivered to you within a few days. If you'll excuse me." He turned and walked back to his car with cool professionalism, leaving a deafening silence in his wake. Ethan was the first to break it. He pointed a trembling finger at me. "Amelia, you explain this. Where did you get the money to buy a penthouse at the Apex? What kind of game are you playing?" Scarlett, snapping out of her stupor, shrieked, "Yes! Where did you get the money? Did you give it to her, Ethan? Tell me the truth. Did you secretly give her money behind my back?" I slowly stood up, brushing off my clothes. I looked Ethan directly in the eye, then let my gaze slide over to Scarlett's face, now twisted with rage. A faint smile, the first since the divorce, played on my lips. "Where I get my money," I said, emphasizing each word, "is no longer any of your concern, is it, Mr. Miller? We're divorced." Then I turned to Scarlett. "As for you, perhaps you should ask your new husband what promises he's actually capable of keeping." Without giving them a chance to respond, I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could hear Scarlett's frantic accusations and Ethan's desperate denials. "I swear I didn't give her a dime. I don't know what's going on." Go ahead, I thought. Fight, doubt each other. The seeds of discord have been sown. I knew they would soon sprout and tear their so-called love to pieces. The satisfaction of seeing their stunned faces was fleeting, replaced by a cold, calculated calm. This was just the opening act. I knew they wouldn't leave me alone after today's shock, and I was right. In the days that followed, my life was filled with subtle, probing disturbances. First, an old mutual friend called. After some pleasantries, she got straight to the point. "Hey, Amelia, what have you been up to? Ethan told me you bought a penthouse at the Apex. Keeping your good fortune a secret, huh?" I gave a soft, weary laugh. "Who have you been talking to? I just got divorced, I don't have a job, and I'm practically living on fumes. Where would I get the money for a place like that? Ethan must have mistaken someone else for me." The more casually I denied it, the more confused she sounded. After a few awkward moments, she hung up. I knew my denial would get back to Ethan, making him even more bewildered. A broke, jobless woman with a private lawyer signing a multi-million-dollar real estate deal? The mystery would eat away at him. Next came Sharon and Haley. This time, Sharon called instead of visiting. Her tone was completely different, no more fake sympathy, just cautious probing. "Amelia, did you win the lottery or something?" "No, of course not. Why would you ask that?" I feigned innocence. "Well, Ethan told me he saw you with a lawyer, signing papers for a multi-million-dollar property. If you've come into some money, you should tell us so we can celebrate with you. We were family, after all." "There's nothing to celebrate, Sharon. Ethan must have been seeing things. I've been at home all day. And a lawyer? I can't even afford to hire one." I was adamant in my denial. I knew they were on edge, unable to comprehend what was happening. My sudden, unexplained wealth, if it was real, was a slap in their faces. They had discarded me like an old coat, and now that coat might just be lined with gold. It drove them mad with curiosity and resentment. Meanwhile, I received a report from Mr. Vance. Ethan and Scarlett had a massive fight after the encounter at the city clerk's office. Scarlett refused to believe Ethan hadn't secretly given me money, and Ethan was losing his mind trying to explain a situation he didn't understand. He even hired a cheap private investigator to look into Arthur Vance and the AV Legacy Trust. Of course, the effort was futile. Mr. Vance had constructed a flawless front. The trust was registered offshore with nominee directors who had no connection to me. Every lead was a dead end. His inability to find the truth made Ethan more irritable. He began taking his frustration out on Scarlett, blaming her materialistic demands for the pressure he was under. Their relationship, built on promises of wealth, was already starting to crack. I watched all of this unfold from a distance. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to remain a mystery and let their own suspicion and greed consume them from the inside. My plan was working perfectly. I had taken their dream. Now, it was time to destroy the foundation of Ethan's pride, his startup. One morning, I received a second, more detailed file from Mr. Vance. It was a comprehensive report on the smart home project Ethan was so proud of. As I turned the pages, a cold smile spread across my face. It turned out the project he constantly bragged about was little more than an empty shell. Mr. Vance's report was thorough. Ethan's innovative technology was mostly repurposed, off-the-shelf software with no real breakthroughs. His business model was completely unrealistic. To maintain the illusion of success, he had burned through his initial capital and taken out numerous high-interest loans from shady lenders. The fake $500,000 debt he used to deceive me was just the tip of a very real iceberg of debt. Most importantly, the report revealed that the project's survival now depended entirely on a single angel investor, a Mr. Harrison, who was about to inject a large sum of capital to bring the product to market. Without that investment, Ethan's company would collapse within a month. Mr. Harrison. That was Ethan's Achilles heel. I called Mr. Vance, my voice firm. "I've read the report. I have 2 tasks for you." "Your instructions, Miss Hayes." "First, find a way to approach the investor, Mr. Harrison. Not directly. Use a third party, a consulting firm. Show him the hidden risks in Ethan's project and, at the same time, present him with a different, more attractive and secure investment opportunity. I don't care what it is. You can invent one. The goal is to make Mr. Harrison back out." Mr. Vance was silent for a moment. "That's feasible. We have financial analysts and the network to execute that discreetly." "Good. Second," I continued, using the A.V. Legacy Trust, "I want you to establish a new tech company. Call it Aura Innovations. Register it in the exact same field as Ethan's company. Then, poach his key employees. Offer them double their current salaries. I want to gut his entire team." This time, Mr. Vance couldn't hide his surprise. "Miss Hayes, you want to compete with him directly?" "I don't want to compete," I replied, my voice flat. "I want him to have nowhere to run. I want his passion project, his source of pride, to die before it's even born. Start spreading rumors in the industry that a major, well-funded player is entering the market. That alone will be enough to scare off his remaining partners." "I understand, Miss Hayes. All necessary steps will be taken immediately. The required funds will be drawn from your account." "Not a problem," I said, and hung up. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the clear sky. A part of me wondered what I was becoming, a cold, calculating manipulator. But then, the image of Ethan and Scarlett embracing below my window flashed in my mind, extinguishing any flicker of doubt. They had left me no path for survival. Why should I show them any mercy? The following days were a waiting game. I ignored the probing calls from friends and the passive-aggressive messages from Ethan's family. My focus was entirely on the game I had set in motion. Soon, the good news started trickling in. Mr. Vance reported that his experts had successfully convinced Mr. Harrison to postpone his investment for further review. Simultaneously, Aura Innovations was officially incorporated and began its recruitment campaign. Ethan's chief technology officer and his head of sales were the first to receive offers they couldn't refuse. The perfect trap was slowly closing, and Ethan, still basking in the glow of his new life, dreaming of success and his new home, had no idea that a storm created by the very wife he cast aside was gathering on the horizon, about to sweep away everything he held dear. My silence was my most effective weapon. While I stayed home, reading, arranging flowers, and receiving regular updates from Mr. Vance, the storm I had created began to rage. It started with whispers. A few of Ethan's suppliers received anonymous consulting calls, hinting that a new company, Aura Innovations, was about to launch a superior product and that Ethan's company was in a precarious financial state. They were skeptical at first, but when his CTO and top salesperson abruptly resigned to join Aura Innovations just a week later, real panic set in. News travels fast in the business world. Rumors began to fly that Ethan's company was an empty shell on the brink of bankruptcy. His remaining employees grew anxious. Seeing their leaders jump ship and hearing whispers of a powerful new competitor, their loyalty wavered. The smart ones quietly started sending their resumes to Aura Innovations. The collapse of a company often begins with the collapse of morale, and I had successfully shattered it. At the same time, Ethan's creditors began to smell blood. Rick, not having received his timely interest payments, sent a couple of his grim-faced associates to check in at Ethan's office. Their mere presence cast a shadow of fear over the already tense workplace. Naturally, Ethan kept all of this from Scarlett. He tried to maintain the illusion that everything was under control. But he forgot that Scarlett lived in a world of brunch spots, high-end spas, and gossip-fueled social circles. One afternoon, as Scarlett was getting a manicure at a luxury salon, her best friend leaned in and whispered, "Hey, "How's Ethan's business really doing? I heard the company is drowning in debt, and that loan sharks have shown up at his office. The city's big gossip forum is buzzing about it." I can only imagine Scarlett's face at that moment, shock turning to anger, then to humiliation. Her greatest fear wasn't Ethan being broke, but her losing face among her friends. She had bragged so much about her brilliant husband and their glamorous future. Now she was on the verge of becoming a laughingstock. That night, she confronted Ethan. Another furious argument erupted. Ethan denied everything, claiming they were just rumors spread by competitors. Scarlett was torn, but her heart was now filled with anxiety. The dream of the apex was gone, and now even her title as a CEO's wife was on shaky ground. I sat in my quiet condo, sipping a cup of hot tea, calmly reading the latest report from Mr. Vance. It detailed the chaos at Ethan's company, his fights with Scarlett, and the panic among his partners. Everything was proceeding exactly as I had planned. Ethan's ship was sinking, and I wouldn't stop until it hit the ocean floor. My patience was finally rewarded. After the CTO and head of sales left, another key employee, fearing he wouldn't get his last paycheck, secretly contacted Aura Innovations. To curry favor, he handed over a trove of internal data, including access to an old work email account Ethan had forgotten to deactivate. And in it, I found exactly what I needed. It was a scanned copy of the loan agreement between Ethan Miller and Rick for the exact amount of $500,000. The purpose of the loan was clearly stated as personal use, and it was dated just 1 month before our divorce. This was it, the irrefutable proof, the evidence that Ethan had lied. The money wasn't for the business, it was for some other personal reason. And I knew that reason was to finance his lifestyle with Scarlett and to stage the divorce drama. With this smoking gun in hand, I didn't act rashly. I knew Scarlett was shallow. What would crush her wasn't the truth itself, but the way it was revealed. It had to be shocking, seemingly accidental, and it had to strike directly at her pride. I had Mr. Vance's team monitor Scarlett's routine. Unsurprisingly, she spent most of her time at malls, spas, and trendy cafes. She had a fixed appointment every Wednesday afternoon at the exclusive Elysian Spa in Soho. It was the perfect time. The plan was meticulous. Mr. Vance hired a private investigator, a middle-aged man with a believable, world-weary look, to pose as a courier. The $500,000 loan agreement was printed on high-quality paper and placed inside a worn-looking file folder. That Wednesday, I sat in a coffee shop across from the spa, watching. Around 4 p.m., Scarlett emerged, looking refreshed and pleased with herself, scrolling through her phone as she walked, likely posting to social media. At that exact moment, the PI, playing the role of a rushed courier and carrying a clumsy stack of boxes, hurried out of an alleyway. He accidentally bumped into Scarlett. "Whoa!" Scarlett cried out, stumbling. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, ma'am, so sorry," the courier said, fumbling with his boxes. The collision sent the worn file folder on top flying, scattering papers across the sidewalk. Scarlett, annoyed and about to snap at him, froze. One of the papers had landed right at her feet. The bold title, Loan Agreement, and the borrower's name, Ethan Miller, were impossible to miss. The figure, $500,000, was written in bright red ink. The courier scrambled to pick up the papers, apologizing profusely. "So sorry, ma'am. I'm in a rush to make a delivery for my boss. So sorry to bother you." But Scarlett wasn't listening. Her eyes were glued to that paper. Even at a glance, she recognized Ethan's signature. $500,000, for personal use, dated before the divorce. The pieces clicked together into a horrifying picture. What is that paper?" Scarlett stammered, pointing. The courier looked flustered, quickly shoving the papers back into the folder and clutching it to his chest. "Oh, it's nothing, ma'am. Just some old papers from my boss. I've got to go." Again, my apologies. He hurried to an old scooter parked nearby and sped off, leaving Scarlett standing frozen on the sidewalk. Her beautiful face was now deathly pale. Her hands, holding her expensive phone, began to shake. The suspicions she had harbored for weeks now had an answer far more bitter and cruel than she could have imagined. Ethan hadn't just hidden his debts from her. He had been massively in debt long before they were even married. So what about the startup? The promises of a wealthy future? Was it all just another lie? From the coffee shop, I watched her stumble away, taking a slow sip of my tea. This game was becoming more interesting by the minute. I knew that tonight, a hurricane would tear through the home they shared. And I would be sitting back, enjoying the sound of the destruction. The hurricane hit sooner than I expected. Instead of going home, Scarlett drove straight to Ethan's office. By now, the place was in chaos, employees quitting, suppliers demanding payment, and the key investor gone silent. Ethan was in his office, head in his hands, when Scarlett stormed in. "Ethan Miller, you explain this to me right now." She slammed her designer handbag on his desk, her voice a shrill cry. $500,000! You were in debt for $500,000 before you even divorced your wife. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan jumped up, his face paling at her fury. He tried to calm her down. "Scarlett, calm down. Where did you hear that nonsense? It's not true." "Nonsense? I saw the loan agreement with my own eyes," she shrieked. "Don't treat me like an idiot. What did you borrow that money for? Was it for your ex-wife? Or was it to pay for me? To create this fake illusion of success?" "Hit with the truth," Ethan stammered, shocked that she knew. "No, it's not what you think. That was an investment for the business. You wouldn't understand." "The business?" Scarlett let out a bitter laugh. "The business that's about to go bankrupt? Your employees are gone, and loan sharks are at the door. Look at this office. It's a disaster. You lied to me." Their argument escalated, loud enough for the few remaining employees to hear every word. Just then, a secretary's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, gasped, and showed it to her colleague. A short video was going viral on social media. A clip of several tattooed men shouting and demanding money outside the entrance to Ethan's company, the corporate sign looking pathetic in the background. Scarlett saw it and snatched the phone. As she watched the video, the last bit of color drained from her face. This was public humiliation. Her friends, her family, everyone would see this. They would laugh at her, the woman who had bet everything on a con artist. "Ethan," she whispered, dropping the phone, shattering its screen. "You are a pathetic, lying bastard. Where is my penthouse at the apex? Where is my life of luxury? What happened to all your promises? Now I don't even have my dignity left." Losing all control, Scarlett began sweeping everything off his desk papers, his laptop, a coffee mug, sending them crashing to the floor. Ethan, already at his breaking point, finally snapped. He shoved her away, roaring, "Shut up! What do you know? If it weren't for you and your constant demands for mansions and sports cars, would I be in this mess? All you know how to do is spend money. You never shared a single burden. You dare blame me?" Scarlett stared at him, aghast. "You lied to me from the very beginning, and now you blame me?" "Yes, it's your fault." They lunged at each other, their argument devolving into a physical altercation. The sweet nothings of their affair had curdled into the ugliest of insults. The secretary who had received the video was now quietly recording the entire office fight. That night, I received an anonymous email. Attached was the full video, along with a simple message. "Miss Hayes, I'm a former employee of Ethan's. I couldn't stand his deceit any longer. I wish you all the best." I watched the video over and over, my heart a calm, steady drum. This was the end of their relationship, but I knew there was one final blow to deliver, one final truth to be revealed that would end it all. The truth about why Ethan and I really divorced. The relationship between Ethan and Scarlett was shattered beyond repair. Scarlett had moved out but hadn't officially ended things. Still caught up in the tangled mess of money and broken promises Ethan was desperately trying to salvage. This was the perfect moment to play my final card. I wanted Scarlett to know she wasn't some inspiring muse. She was the reason Ethan had stooped to such a despicable charade to discard the wife who had stood by him through everything. The person to deliver this message could be none other than Rick, the man who had played the part of the creditor. I reached out to Mr. Vance. "Find Rick. I have a proposition for him." With his extensive network, Mr. Vance quickly and discreetly made contact. Rick himself was having trouble collecting the $500,000 debt from the now destitute Ethan. The offer made to him was simple and sweet. An anonymous party would pay off $200,000 of Ethan's debt, in cash, immediately. In return, all Rick had to do was one small thing. During a chance encounter with Ethan and Scarlett, he was to accidentally let slip the story of how Ethan hired him to fake the bankruptcy to get a quick divorce. That was it. For a loan shark like Rick, it was a deal he couldn't refuse. He recovered a significant portion of a bad debt with zero risk. He agreed instantly. The chance meeting was arranged at a quiet cafe where Ethan had begged Scarlett to meet for one last attempt at reconciliation. I wasn't there, but one of Mr. Repeting, Vance's associates, was, sitting at a nearby table, recording everything. As Ethan and Scarlett were talking tensely, Rick walked in. Spotting Ethan, he strode over with a big grin, clapping him on the shoulder. "Ethan, my man, long time no see. You with your new girl? She's a knockout." Ethan flinched, his face turning ashen as he tried to wave Rick away. But it was too late. Rick continued in his booming voice. "You're a lucky guy. The moment you got rid of the old ball and chain, you land a beauty like this. Hey, I gotta say, that little play we put on was genius. A little fake debt, and boom, problem solved. Smart kid." Every word was a hammer blow to Scarlett's composure. She stared, stunned, looking from Rick to Ethan and back again. "Play? What play? What are you talking about?" Her voice trembled. Rick now pretended to realize his mistake. He scratched his head, looking sheepish. "Oh, she doesn't know? My bad. Ethan didn't tell you? He paid me to pretend to be a creditor, to stage a whole bankruptcy thing so his ex-wife would get scared and sign the divorce papers without a fight. Whoops, I've said too much. Well, you two have a nice chat. I'll see myself out." Rick made a hasty exit, leaving a dead, suffocating silence behind him. Scarlett sat motionless, her face turning from white to a deep, bruised purple. She slowly turned to Ethan, her eyes no longer filled with anger, but with pure, unadulterated disgust. "Ethan Miller," she said, her voice like ice. "So that's what this was all about. You're not just a liar and a failure. You're a pathetic, spineless coward. You used a disgusting trick to abandon your wife, and I was the reason for it." She stood up, picked up her glass of water, and threw it directly in his face. "A man like you deserves nothing. As of this moment, we are done. Don't you ever show your face to me again." She turned and walked away without a single look back, leaving Ethan sitting alone, drenched, humiliated, and utterly broken. Everything he had schemed for his career, his new love, his pride, had turned to ash in a single afternoon. When I received the report, I felt a strange sense of peace. The game was over. The battle in the cafe ended swiftly with Scarlett's decisive exit, but I knew another, uglier war was just beginning within Ethan's family. Mr. Vance's report stated that after Scarlett left, Ethan sat there for a long time, completely stunned. He didn't go after her. He knew it was pointless. He went to a bar and drank himself into a stupor. When he finally stumbled back to the condo, our old home, his mother and sister were waiting for him. Sharon and Haley had clearly heard about the fight at the office and Scarlett's departure. They were waiting for an explanation. When Ethan returned, drunk and disheveled, Sharon's rage erupted. "Look at you! Just look at the state you're in! What have I done to deserve a son like you?" she shrieked, all her previous syrupy sweetness gone. "You left Amelia a good, kind, hard-working woman for that gold-digging tramp. And now she's left you. Are you happy now? Have you finally woken up?" Ethan, already miserable and drunk, flew into a rage. "What do you know?" he yelled back. "Don't you dare mention her. It's all her fault. She's the one who ruined me." "She ruined you? She was at home cooking and cleaning and taking care of this family while you were out cheating. Did she ruin you, or did you ruin yourself? Your company is gone, your new wife is gone, and you're drowning in debt. What's going to happen to you? To this family?" Haley started sobbing. "Ethan, what are we going to do? Are those loan sharks going to come to our house? I'm so scared. If my friends find out about this, I'll be so humiliated." "All you care about is your reputation," Ethan bellowed at his sister. "When I was giving you money for your shopping sprees, you weren't thinking about this day, were you?" Does anyone in this family actually care about me? Their argument turned the house into a war zone, shouting, crying, the slamming of fists on tables. They blamed each other, their greed and selfishness, long hidden beneath a veneer of family love, now laid bare. Sharon blamed Ethan for being a fool. Ethan blamed his mother and sister for being materialistic. Haley cried that her brother was ruining her future. I read every line of the report, imagining the chaotic scene without a shred of pity. This was their true nature, a family built on selfishness and delusion. When the delusion shattered, only ugliness remained. They were tearing each other apart, dragging each other down into the mud pit they had created together. This was the real punishment, delivered not by me, but by the very people they called their loved ones. The storm in Ethan's family raged for days. Scarlett, after her dramatic exit, enacted her own petty revenge. She took all the jewelry and designer bags Ethan had bought her and maxed out his last remaining credit card on a final shopping spree before calling to have it canceled. It was the final fleecing of an already shorn sheep. Ethan's company, having lost its investor and key staff, officially collapsed. A week after the cafe incident, he filed for bankruptcy. The title of talented young CEO was replaced by a mountain of debt and a failed business record. This news was the final blow for Sharon and Haley. Their last hope was gone. With Ethan's downfall, their financial support vanished. The family home became a stifling space filled with sighs and endless arguments. Then, their worst fear came true. A few of the smaller creditors, unable to find Ethan, showed up at Sharon's house. They didn't do anything violent, just stood outside, loudly complaining about Ethan's unpaid debts, making sure the whole neighborhood could hear. The shame was so immense that Sharon didn't dare leave her house. Desperate, they thought of me. My phone began to ring again. This time, there was no pretense, only panic. Haley called first. "Amelia? Please, you have to help Ethan. People are showing up at our house. Mom and Dad are terrified. You know people. Can you make some calls? Help him out?" I replied coldly. "What Ethan does is no longer my concern, Haley. He made his bed. But you were family once. When he and your entire family were lying to my face, did any of you think of me as family?" I said, and hung up. Then Sharon called, her voice no longer condescending, just a desperate, sobbing plea. "Amelia, I'm begging you, save my son, save this family. I know I was wrong. I know I treated you badly. Please forgive me, just help him this one last time. If something happens to him, I won't be able to live." I listened to her crocodile tears in silence. If I were still the poor, helpless woman from before, would she have shed a single tear for me? "Sharon," I said, changing my tone to something formal and distant. "That's all in the past. I am no longer your daughter-in-law. I'm just an ordinary woman. There is nothing I can do to help. I suggest you tell Ethan to solve his own problems." I then blocked both of their numbers. The nuisance had to end. They had backed themselves into a corner. Now they had to face the consequences. But my plan wasn't quite finished. They had caused me immeasurable pain, and they had to pay for every last bit of it. I decided it was time to deliver a final, devastating psychological blow. I wanted them to live in fear, not of loan sharks, but of a powerful, invisible force they could never fight. I instructed Mr. Vance, as legal counsel for the A.V. Legacy Trust, I want you to call Sharon's home landline. I specified the landline because I knew she kept it on speakerphone for the whole family to hear. The call was made that afternoon. Sharon answered. "Hello? Good afternoon. This is Arthur Vance, legal representative for the A.V. Legacy Investment Trust." Mr. Vance's voice was professional, cold, and authoritative. "I am calling to inform you and your family about a matter concerning your son, Mr. Ethan Miller." Hearing the words lawyer and a strange corporate name, Sharon was confused. "What trust? What does that have to do with my son?" "Ma'am, during an internal audit, we discovered that Mr. Miller has been illegally using the name of projects associated with our trust to solicit funds from third parties. Furthermore, he has engaged in non-transparent financial dealings that have severely damaged the reputation of our trust. We have substantial evidence of these activities. Each word was a stone cast into a still pond. "No, that's impossible," Sharon stammered. "There must be some mistake. My son would never do something like that." Mr. Vance ignored her pleas. "The A.V. Legacy Trust is not concerned with mistakes. We operate based on evidence. Due to Mr. Miller's serious misconduct, the trust has decided to file a formal lawsuit against him in federal court for fraud and criminal misappropriation. We will also be notifying our entire network of partners and financial institutions to place Mr. Extant Miller on a permanent credit blacklist." "Oh God, no! Please don't!" Sharon screamed. "A lawsuit? My poor boy, he was just foolish. Please, have mercy. We'll pay you back. We'll pay whatever it costs." "Ma'am, this matter is now beyond financial restitution. It is a legal and reputational issue. This concludes my notification. We wish your family the best of luck." Mr. Vance hung up, giving them no chance to beg or argue. I knew that after that call, their family would be thrown into absolute terror. They had no idea who or what the A.V. Legacy Trust was, only that it was powerful, and that their son had angered it. The consequences would be dire. 15 minutes later, my unblocked cell phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice was no longer angry, but filled with primal fear. "Amelia, it was you, wasn't it? You're behind all of this, that damned A.V. Trust. That's you, right? Are you trying to destroy me?" I laughed softly. "What are you talking about? You get yourself into trouble, and now you're blaming me?" "Stop pretending," he roared. "The name A.V. It has to be you. Amelia, please, I'm begging you. I know I was wrong. Forgive me, just this once. Whatever you want, I'll work like a dog to pay you back. Just don't send me to prison, please." In the background, I could hear Sharon wailing and Haley shouting, "Why are you calling her? She's the one who did this to us." Then Ethan yelling back, "Shut up! If we don't beg her, we're all finished." A chaotic symphony of fear, blame, and despair. I spoke calmly into the phone. "Ethan, you reap what you sow. You should start taking care of yourself." Then I ended the call. From now on, they would live in constant fear, waiting for a court summons that would never arrive. They would never know that there was no lawsuit. It was all a psychological game. But for them, this invisible threat was more terrifying than any real punishment. Having sown fear in their hearts, I decided it was time to reclaim what was rightfully mine, not because I needed it, but because I wanted to erase any trace of my contribution to a family that had never valued it. I made a list. The 24-karat gold bracelet I bought for Sharon's 60th birthday with my own savings. The $2,000 Haley borrowed for a new scooter and never paid back. The large-screen TV and sound system in their living room, which I had purchased. I had receipts for everything. In total, it came to nearly $20,000. A small sum for me now, but a fortune for them. I sent the list to Mr. Vance. "Draft a legal letter demanding the full return of these assets and funds within 1 week. If they fail to comply, we will proceed with a lawsuit for theft and misappropriation of property." The letter was sent. Their reaction was predictable. Haley called first, shrieking like a cornered animal. "Amelia, are you insane? Are you even human? You want this old junk back? Are you trying to kill us?" "That junk was paid for with my hard work," I replied calmly. "I lent you money. I didn't gift it. The things I bought for your parents were as their daughter-in-law. I am no longer part of your family. It is perfectly reasonable for me to reclaim my property. You have 1 week." "I'm not giving you anything. What are you going to do?" she challenged. "Then I'll see you in court," I said softly. "Let's see how easy it is for a young woman to get a job or find a husband with a criminal record for theft." The line went silent. I had hit her weak spot. Then Sharon called, a bizarre mix of pleading and cursing. "Amelia, how can you be so cruel? This bracelet has been on my wrist for years. It's sentimental. Don't you have a heart?" "Sharon, when you and your family conspired to trick me, did you have a heart?" I retorted. "I am only taking back what is mine. You can refuse, but then Ethan will be named as an accomplice in the lawsuit. He's already in enough legal trouble. I'm sure one more charge won't make a difference." My threat worked. They were terrified. On the final day of the deadline, a courier delivered a box to Mr. Vance's office. Inside was the gold bracelet and a cash envelope with $2,000. For the TV and sound system, they pleaded to pay in installments. Seeing those items again stirred nothing in me. I told Mr. Vance to sell the bracelet immediately and donate all the money to an orphanage. I had finally, completely, severed all material ties to them. The debts between me and the Miller family were settled. They were left with the ashes of their lives. For me, it was time to truly begin mine. The old bracelet and cash sat in Mr. Vance's office. I had no desire to see them. That piece of gold, once a symbol of my misplaced pride in being a good daughter-in-law, was now just a cold, lifeless object tainted with deceit. I instructed my lawyer to sell it and all the other trinkets. The entire sum, including the cash from Haley, was wired to a scholarship fund for underprivileged children. I didn't want any of it. It was a final cleansing of a toxic past. After everything was settled, a deep silence fell. No more hateful calls, no more pathetic pleas. The Miller family had vanished from my world. A few weeks later, Mr. Vance sent me one last report, an epilogue to that closed chapter of my life. He wrote that after scraping together the money to pay me back, the Millers were destitute. Sharon's house was mortgaged to pay off the most aggressive creditors. Her health had deteriorated significantly from the stress. Haley, shamed by the family scandal, had hastily married an older man from her hometown, a loveless match for the sake of stability. And Ethan? He was a ghost. He had lost everything and disappeared, rumored to be hiding out somewhere in the rural Midwest, working odd jobs to evade his remaining debts, a shadow of his former self. Reading this, I felt nothing. No joy, no pity, no anger, just a profound sense of release. They had received their just deserts, not because of my cruelty, but as a direct result of their own greed and betrayal. My old life was officially over. It was time to leave the Brooklyn condo, a place that held more sorrow than joy. The penthouse at the apex was ready. The keys and deed, all discreetly held by the A.V. Legacy Trust, had been delivered. I didn't move in right away. I hired the city's best architects and designers with a simple instruction: create a space that is elegant, warm, and entirely mine. No more dark wood and heavy furniture to suit Ethan's taste. No more decor chosen to please Sharon. I chose a palette of cream, white, and soft sage green. I placed a grand piano by the window overlooking the city skyline. I had never played, but I decided I would learn. One entire room was transformed into a library with floor-to-ceiling shelves for all the books I loved. The renovation took 3 months where I felt truly alive, building not just a home, but a new life, brick by brick. On moving day, I packed only a few clothes, my favorite books, and photos of my parents. I drove my new car, an elegant but understated luxury sedan, to the old condo one last time. I didn't go up. I just sat in the car, looking at the familiar window, a place of so many hopes and heartbreaks. Then I started the engine and drove away, never looking back. My new home greeted me with sunlight and a breathtaking sense of space. From the upper terrace, the entire city spread out before me like a carpet of glittering jewels. That evening, I poured myself a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon and stood on the balcony, the cool breeze in my hair. Below me, the city lights twinkled. For the first time in my life, I felt a peace so profound, a freedom so complete. My life was finally my own. My new existence was quiet and meaningful. The money didn't corrupt me, it liberated me. I enrolled in classes for floral arrangement, for the traditional tea ceremony, and for piano. I learned to swim and got my scuba diving certification. I made new friends, strong, intelligent, independent women who knew nothing of my past. They just knew me as Amelia, a single woman who loved art and travel. Mr. Vance would occasionally call with updates. The trust's investments were thriving. By the way, Miss Hayes, he mentioned once, Ethan Miller's bankruptcy is finalized. And his mother has called the office a few times, asking for your contact information. She wants to apologize. You did well to refuse her, I said. I have no need for a late apology. Forgiveness might be possible, but forgetting was not. One afternoon, I drove past a famous, Michelin-starred restaurant Ethan and I used to dream of eating at. On an impulse, I went in, alone. I ordered the most expensive items on the menu. The food was exquisite, but the real happiness came from the knowledge that I could do this for myself, dependent on no one. My life was now filled with positive things. I was learning to love and prioritize myself. The scar on my heart would likely always be there, but it no longer ached. It was just a reminder of a foolish past and the strength I had found. A year passed. As I sat in the first-class lounge at JFK, waiting to board a flight for a solo trip through Europe, I saw a familiar figure. It was Scarlett. She looked tired and worn, her designer dress looking a season old. She was struggling alone with a large suitcase. Our eyes met. A flash of shock, then envy, then shame crossed her face. She quickly looked down and hurried away. I just smiled faintly and returned to my book. We were worlds apart now. Her life was no longer my concern. Later, at a college reunion, a friend shared the latest gossip. "Did you hear about Ethan Miller? Disappeared completely. Rumor is he's working as a farmhand somewhere in Nebraska. His mom is sick all the time, and his sister is in a miserable marriage." The table buzzed with comments about karma and just deserts. I just sipped my tea in silence. Their path was the one they had chosen the day they so cruelly pushed me out of their lives. The old Amelia, who lived only for her husband and his family, was gone. Today's Amelia was free, wealthy, and knew her own worth. Looking out the window of my penthouse, I saw the first colors of dawn painting the sky. My life felt like that sunrise. After a long, dark night, the light had finally broken through, and I knew the road ahead was long, bright, and full of sunshine.